Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Vicki.
Boys. I'm so happy to see you guys. I miss you guys, and I want to see you live so badly. So, all right, this is me, Vicki Abelson, with the immediate family, and now we're all different on each other's screens, but we've got Denny Tedesco, filmmaker of of the immediate family doc, which is coming out. We've got Kootch, Danny Kortchmar up there for me. We've got Russ Kunkel. We've got Leland Sklar. We've got Waddy Wachtel. We have my old friend Steve Postell. And all together, this is going to be, I don't know who the spokesman is going to be today, or if we're going to be all over the place, but I'm really excited. Okay, so has anybody in this group not had COVID? Oh, wow, that's pretty good. Okay, so that's, and you're traveling, you travel, and you haven't.
Some of us do more than others, traveling wise.
Yeah. Have you not been traveling as much?
No, I haven't been going anywhere.
Okay, I haven't either, and it's work because you haven't.
But Russ and Lee have been out for months, So.
Well, one of them, 50% of them had COVID. So this is a real source of contention. Are you COVID compatible with the people in your lives?
I'm not compatible with anyone in my life.
Never has been.
I think
that's a good setup.
Person.
Yeah, because
I don't even know what that means, Vicki.
In other words, does Shannon get does she travel with you?
Oh, Shauna,
I'm sorry. Oh God.
Sometimes she does, yeah. And she hasn't had it either. She hasn't had it either.
So you guys have managed to travel and not get it.
Correct.
Do you mask?
When traveling, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you guys still mask?
When
I'm traveling.
Absolutely.
I just use my beard.
It's not working well.
Yeah, it's a filter.
So is life back to normal for? Okay. So Kootch, you really aren't, but you're playing out though. You play out with the immediate family.
Well, with the boys, yeah, and we're about to go out towards the end of this year, which I'm looking forward to.
So where are you guys going?
Where are we going, guys?
We're going around Los Angeles.
California.
Coach House.
Yeah, all the
Steve, you've got the
all the
dates.
canyon clubs.
Steve, you've got the dates for us. Give us the dates,
Steve. Give
Steve.
us the dates, man.
18th of November. By the 12th of November is Santa Clarita,
Okay.
which is these are all canyon clubs. Canyon of Santa Clarita. The 18th is the Canyon Club.
Where?
That's Agura, right?
That's vague.
I think so. That's Agura.
That's
Okay.
Agora.
Yeah,
The 19th is there's a Canyon Club in Montclair.
Montclair, right?
I don't even know where Montclair is in New Jersey.
In Jersey.
Yeah. Is it? That's not the one you're going to.
Montclair's east.
That's where David Lindley lives.
He's in Claremont.
So it's close.
Yeah.
So in other words, Kootch, you're traveling all the way to Claremont or to Montclair.
That's too far.
And that's the kind of traveling I've been doing as well. But you've stayed healthy and haven't gotten COVID.
Correct.
Do you go to movies?
No, not anymore.
Do you go to indoor restaurants?
We usually sit outside when I go.
See, now you're my kind of guy. This is what I'm saying. The COVID crazy land. Okay, so has life, other than for Kootch and I, has life gone back to normal for you guys?
Yes.
Are your careers back to normal? Life back to, yes, Russ? Tell me how.
Well, for me, yeah, life is kind of back to normal. I mean, when I travel, I wear a mask, but other than that, I'm kind of looking at it as, let's get on with this.
So you're going to indoor restaurants. You'd go to a concert you play concerts indoors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you guys still get tested all the time when you're touring? You getting tested, Waddy?
Yes, we get tested every day.
You get tested every day.
Every day.
I test once a week, no matter what, because
because you're COVID crazy like me, right?
I just want to, I don't want to give it to anyone else. So
I love that, Steve.
Safest way to do it.
That's very responsible. That's really. Do you get those? Do you know about the 8 free tests a month that you're entitled to from the government? Yes, that's a very good thing. Yeah, there you go. And so Lee, is it bad? Lee, you weren't really, yes, you were a little COVID crazy, because I remember you going to the senior citizens Trader Joe's shopping thing, right? At like 7
Well,
in the morning.
when COVID first hit, when they started to offer that, like, an hour before the stores would
Right.
open, the markets and stuff, that they would allow seniors in. And I figure there's got to be some perk with turning old. So I went there. And then the thing is, you walk in the store and you realize they haven't restocked the
Yeah,
shelves
they got
the day
nothing.
before. So you go in and there's nothing in there.
Is that true?
Yeah, it was bullshit. Gelson's, Ralph's, none of those places, the shelves were all empty. They were just starting to stock them. So by the time they got anything on the shelves, it was back to normal hours for people. So it was, I think, a gesture done to make them look like they gave a shit, but they didn't. And but I'll always carry a mask with me. And if I go into a place that's looking a little on the funky side, I'll put the mask on, but I'm not putting it on constantly. But I also, I've had both my shots and I've had 3 boosters.
We sound like dogs now. I've had my shots.
Yeah, well, it's kind of, we always treat our dogs better. There's no arguments about giving my dogs, vaccinations, but when it comes to people, everybody goes out of their fucking minds over this.
Do you know that only 1/3 of Americans have had a booster shot?
Yeah.
That was shocking. I was shocked to hear that.
Well, it's sad.
Somebody's computer's dinging.
I don't know how to stop it.
If you go into your notifications and turn off, put on Do Not Disturb, it'll take that away. So Denny, how about you? Are you back to normal in your life?
Yeah, in a weird way, because the film industry kind of like jumped back in pretty quickly, because they really set up systems of safety. And
So
Soderbergh was the one that actually was in charge of that. If
Really?
you guys remember, yeah, Steven Soderbergh, and he did.
What did he do?
He was, he had done that movie. Oh God, help me, guys.
Sex,
movie-
Lies, and no,
No,
that was a long
yeah,
time
that
ago.
too.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the virus, a different virus. But he did, oh God, Outbreak, one of those movies,
Yeah.
like 10 years before.
Yeah.
And they went to him because he has such research done. And if you watch that movie, it looked like,
Are you kidding me?
honest to God, you look like a bad TV movie. I love him. When I say that, it was because everything he has said in that movie 10 years before was happening in real time with us. It was
I
coming
have to
out
watch
of China,
this
coming out
movie.
of
This
our
is
market.
crazy.
Yeah, it was amazing. So they put him in charge of trying to get the industry back. You got to do this, you got to do this, and it's still going on. They're pretty safety conscious, but that industry is always constantly. There's not one thing that's the same any day, so they can move quickly. You
So
got an art department that can move quickly. So
First, show us your T-shirt, Denny Tedesco. Guess what he is?
who's my favorite? I don't want to say my favorite in the band because it might upset a few people.
That's an hysterical shirt. Is that part of your swag deal, Lee?
No, it's just it was another crazy thing to do during COVID when you had no life ahead of you and you're looking at all these things to do to try to make every day feel constructive. Because we all of us had, we would look in our books 2.5 years ago, and everybody had things in them, and then overnight it was like a fart in a hurricane. It just blew away, and next thing you know, you're looking at pages of emptiness, and what am I going to do now? And so we all just found different ways of doing things, and certainly as a band, we were ending up doing these a cappella videos where we could put videos together but not actually being together. There was a lot of communication, but not hands-on communication.
A lot of this kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I say something about these
Yes.
guys? And I'm not kissing their asses because I'm already past that now. But
You've already made the movie.
I already moved. The movie's done. When we started the film, it was pre-COVID, and we'll get into that later. But once COVID hit, the world stopped.
This is what I want to talk about right now. So where
And-
were
but
you?
I watched I was far enough. I had all of our stars almost. I had Carole King interviewed Linda Jackson, James, Phil
And
Collins.
you had all that in the can already.
That was already in the can. So when that March came around, I was like, oh my God, we don't have the guys, and we didn't have much of you guys at all. But
Oh, you didn't have these guys.
no, we didn't have these guys, the movie. So we slowly went back, a few months, who knew where it was going to go. So then we finally decided, let's play safe. It was just a cameraman and a soundman and myself, and we would go to each of their houses and we start doing those interviews in a safe, manner. In a weird way, it kind of gave us a break also to learn about each other as well. I mean, the time, the distance also. But my compliment to these guys, most musicians, and many probably did, just whatever, that was it, and moved off, wait till the work came back. They never stopped. They were doing those videos, which blew my mind because they did it, like you said, by themselves. And they never stopped writing, never stopped playing. And that's the greatest compliment for these guys. I mean, it really still blows my mind because it's easy to walk away and take the easy road and just hang out. They didn't.
I agree. And you didn't either. We're going to come back to how the film was impacted. But so Lee, you on one show of mine said, I'm thinking about putting together this book. And the next time I saw you, it was published. Everybody Loves Me. So you also, well, I don't want to talk about what you did. Tell us about the YouTube channel. Like, how did the YouTube channel get started?
Well, a real quick thing, because I really want to stay focused on us as a band. But when we had finished a Phil Collins tour, the Not Dead Yet tour, and I had a few guys writing to me saying, oh yeah, we saw you guys, but it was like in a stadium and it was kind of hard to hear all the parts and everything. And I just thought, what the hell? I got a board mix of one of our shows and I plugged it into my laptop, put a little Bose speaker next to my laptop and a little bass amp down here next to me on the floor. And I played the first song of the show and played along with it, but mixed it into my phone so that the bass was a little bit louder. And each day I would do the next song. And by the third day, I had people writing to me going, man, we love your YouTube channel. And I'm going, what are you talking about? I mean, I had no idea it was a YouTube channel by posting a couple of videos. And now it's up to like almost about 1,100 videos now. And there's over 200,000 people on the channel.
Of course there are.
So it's been great. I mean, because it's made me address things. I talk a great deal about the band, and it's really fun because people are asking me when they can see the band, what's going on with the movie and all this stuff. So it's a good format for all that. And it's also made me address my career because, like the other guys, I'm the kind of guy that thinks about today and tomorrow. I don't dwell in yesterday. Yesterday already happened. But it's required me to kind of go back and dig through all this material that I've worked on over the past half a century. And so I've done that. I've shown all these different bass parts to things, but there's also things where I'm just turning people onto music that they've said they write back and they say, we would have never known about this had we not seen it.
Wow, how great is that?
It's been a real education. And I love that kind of stuff. Not so much the playing, but just the kind of, I mean, the thing I'm really excited about when we go to the premieres of these is the Q&As. I'm always curious about what people are thinking about things and happy to answer when possible. And I think the thing I'm most excited about that I'm looking forward to beyond hearing our new album finished, which is really some of the best.
Which is called, right now, the working title, The Best Record Ever Made.
Well,
or
it may stick because it sure as hell is. But I think the thing that's going to be really fun to do is to sit with an audience and watch this movie, because I've seen rough cuts of it twice now. But when we're doing it, it's the band and production team and stuff.
Oh, so you guys haven't, okay, because I know it's going out to festivals, but you guys haven't sat down and had
No, they've seen it.
Well,
a screen, but you haven't had a screen. You haven't had a screening.
No. So to sit in an audience with a real audience and see what their response is going to be, it's going to be really fascinating. Whether,
Did you guys watch it together or did you all see it separately? You did.
Yeah.
Well, that must have been quite an experience.
It was
it nervous? Were you guys nervous?
Yeah. It was
Really?
odd. It's odd to see something about yourself and your brothers for an hour and a half talking about us. It was kind of bizarre.
How did Denny do?
Denny,
Great.
Fabulous.
Amazing.
Anywho, Waddy.
I can't wait. So Waddy, for you during this time, during these last two, okay, is life back to normal for you?
no, I don't think life is ever going to be back to normal. You
I
know,
agree. Yeah.
life is
Yeah.
fucking ruined because of what's happened. So normal is now wear a mask every time I go anywhere, and no, life is not normal. You know, I mean, I can enjoy my life, and I enjoy being home with my wife and our animals and our stuff, but no, life is completely altered. You know,
Is it for
So
me? I
different.
haven't traveled yet. I haven't gotten on a plane. I don't do indoor stuff.
Yeah.
Is it traumatic since you have a similar sensibility? Is it traumatic to travel?
Well, we travel in an entire bubble. You know, everything there. For example, with Stevie's situation, there are no more guest passes. There are no more backstage visits. Wives can't come. Girlfriends can't come.
Oh.
There are no, and because of that, promoters have really clamped down on giving the artist the amount of free tickets they used to get because they want to fill every seat. So it's kind of like being in the Twilight Zone, really. You know, you're ushered in. You're wearing masks. The only time, the 2.5 hours we play, we're free. The
Right.
masks are off. We get to be what we want. We get to do what we want. As soon as we come off that stage, the masks are back on, and it's.
Are you flying private?
Yeah.
And so has
Thank goodness.
has it
Thank
not
goodness.
impacted the band because you guys are doing it this way?
We're all flying private right now.
No. I mean, has COVID not impacted the band? Because every touring band I know has been shut down or stopped for a while, or
It hasn't affected the tour, but I mean, I got it when we came back from our June run. I wound up with it. I was isolated for a week, and before
how do you think you got it if you were flying private?
I don't really know how I got it. It's very unusual because we were, you know, flying private. We were bubbled up. We were masked up. All I knew was by the third day I was home, I didn't feel right, and I took an antigen test, and it was positive. And then Steve's assistant Karen, who I call wife number 2, wife number 3, Stevie being wife number 2, came out and gave me a PCR test, and it was positive. And I don't know how I got it. And on that flight, Stevie and I were sitting there talking to each other without masks on and sharing.
And she didn't get it?
She did not get it, no.
Wow.
That's the weird part.
We don't understand how I got it.
That is crazy.
Before we went out this time, 2 of the guys got COVID, but they got cleared before we started rehearsing, and so nothing's brewed up to stop the show so far.
And how was it okay for you? Did you not get it bad?
It was okay. It was I felt like I had a bad cold for a couple of days, and then I was fine. I took that drug,
Paxlovid?
yeah, and it worked. It gives you a unbelievably horrible taste in your mouth, but I have that anyway, so you know, for life. So it wasn't that unusual.
So Waddy, during the whole shutdown and all of that stuff, how long have you been back out on the road and stuff?
We just started about a week ago. We
brand new.
Up in Jazz Aspen, we did that. Then we just went to Ravinia for 2 nights, and now we played Pine Knob last night, and now we're in Jersey. We're going to play this festival here in a couple of days, and we have a bunch more gigs to do, and we're coming back and doing more in October. This is the most gig we've done in a while, so it's going to be wonderful.
So what was it like for you not doing that for so long?
Well, it's like when we were talking about, Denny was talking about us being prolific and doing what we do. My version of that is if I wasn't a band, I lost my mind completely. We had this band to focus on, and that kept everything in check. We always had an outlet for, you know, our insanity or our normality or whatever, or music. we could pour it into this band. Without the band, I don't know what I would have been doing. I'd probably be in jail for having killed someone.
And were you productive and prolific? Aside, I mean, did you wake up in the morning with energy and like, all right, I'm going to do this today? Did anybody fuck off? That's what I want to know. Did anybody here fuck off?
Fuck off all day long.
We worked. We've written this album we're working on. There's 14 new songs on this album, and we, composed all of them.
We wrote two albums.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we've been without the band, I don't know what would have happened.
And you all wrote? All of you songwriters in here wrote? You all have songs on this album, I assume?
The bulk of us wrote, yes. Yeah.
Is that the longest you guys have never played live in your careers?
I would say so, yeah. I mean, Stevie and I, we have been on the road for 3 years. Stevie was the first one to pull out of the New Orleans Jazz Festival. Then it shut down. That was like 2.5 years ago. We had a whole bunch of gigs booked, and she just said, I'm not doing it. So we're out there. This is the first time in almost 3 years, and that's very long for her.
And she didn't get COVID the whole deal.
No.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to hear that. Okay, so I'm coming back to you. So Russ, for you were saying you're kind of back to, so what was, you were doing this stuff with the immediate family. What else was your life like during all this stuff that was going on the last 2.5 years?
Oh, it was pretty much like everyone else's, when we had things on the books or Zoom meetings or video parts to make, we all did that. But, masking up, going to the store, doing normal life. I live in San Clemente, so I got to do some outdoor things. I did some surfing and played some golf and tried to be normal. But Leland and I were just out on the road with Lyle Lovett for almost 3 months.
So now how was that? You guys didn't get sick on that tour. Were you guys in a bubble on that tour?
Well, I would say it was a semi-bubble. I mean, at one point, the large band, which is 16 people, got down to just the rhythm section and Lyle. And Lyle got COVID. The horn section got COVID. All the singers got COVID. We were traveling, doing shows with Chris Isaac. His whole band went down and canceled a bunch of shows.
How did you guys do it when it was just the rhythm section and Lyle? You did it with just the rhythm section and Lyle? You did shows?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was Jim Cox, Leland, myself, and James Hara. And we played it, and did it.
I guess you couldn't do it when Lyle was out, though.
No, we did.
What? Wait, what?
Because he was on his own bus, and what happened was that when he got it, he stayed on his bus, and he wore his mask, and he would come in. We set up quite far away. I mean, it must have looked a little weird to the audience. We were at least 15 feet away from him. He came in, did the shows, and then went right back on his bus and left. So
he did the shows with COVID?
Yeah, he was fine.
Wow.
He felt fatigued, but he wasn't really down, and the audience wouldn't know that he had it. It's not like he was laid up or anything like that. He's a real, trooper. So, but he didn't put anybody else in a vulnerable situation with him up there. At a certain point, we just had to say, we got to do this shit out here. I mean, everybody had been vaccinated, and most had at least one booster. Mm-hmm. So even if anybody in the band got sick, it really wasn't bad. And as like Waddy said too, I mean, we had no after show, no backstage, no interaction with people, no family practically coming out on the road. It was really a bubble. But the problem was we had 3 different buses. And
yeah, I was going to say, if you were doing it like that, how did everybody get sick?
Well, it really was only 2 guys that got sick, but the 2 guys were on a bus that was full of people, so they basically had to quarantine that bus.
I see.
But the guys weren't all sick, but it just was one of those situations not to take a chance, and they waited for the guys who were sick to clear, and then they all rejoined the tour. But it was interesting. I mean, just suddenly taking a show that we had built around 16 people and having to suddenly do it, not missing 9 and rearranging and stuff. It kept everybody on their toes, that's for sure.
I bet. How long was the tour?
Almost 3 months.
Wow. So, all right, that's a lot going on.
It was 60 shows in 74 days.
Holy
Absolutely insane.
Holy. So now you guys pretty much play everything together. I mean, you guys have been together and on the road together and in the studio together for like 50 years, like on everything. Is that
pretty much? Yeah.
So is there something, you've got the immediate family stuff coming up in November. Is there something else? What's coming up next for you guys? We're going to talk about the immediate family mostly. I'm just getting this stuff out of the way, but what's next for you two?
The immediate family.
That's what's next.
Yeah.
Okay, so Kootch.
That's it.
That's it.
For the
All
rest
right.
of our lives.
You know what? I hope that happens for you guys. Well, with Stevie, I don't know how you do that, but I hope that happens for you, that you guys are so goddamn busy that Waddy can't even do Stevie. I'd love to see you guys just get what you deserve here. Kootch, so so you've been much more laid back. You haven't been out on the road. You're not doing the indoor stuff. So, but I know you haven't been slacking during the pandemic. You've been doing a lot of writing, haven't you?
I'm always writing. I'm always trying out new stuff, and I'm not. Waddy is the same thing. I'm just always trying to come up with new stuff. Remember, I have this incredible band as my muse, so I can write something. If the fellas dig it, we can go ahead and make a record out of it and play it on the road. So it's wonderful to have this outlet, which keeps me writing and keeps me coming up with ideas.
Can you give me an example of something recently that sparked you to start a song? Well, I would love to, because you are one of the greatest rock and roll songwriters of all time. And I'm not kissing your ass. This is just the facts.
What a
so I'm just like, how the fuck somebody's baby? How do you write? So, okay, so you've written from what I understand, you have one album coming out, but you've written 2 albums worth of songs, is right? You guys have written a lot of songs.
The next, the thing that's about to come out?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 14 songs on there, which is,
a lot.
We could get away with 10, but
a lot.
We kept writing, and kept coming up with great ideas, and let's go, We love the studio, we love to record, and we're good at it. We're very good at it.
You certainly are very good at it. So I'm serious. Maybe this is a bizarre question. I've never asked anybody this, but can you give me an example of like something that sparked you to write one of these songs?
Well, you have to go back to when I was 10 years old, and Little Richard, Elvis Presley, Chuck Berry, Fats Domino, then the Beatles, Motown, then the Beatles. So all of it.
Yeah, but I mean, with the specific song that you've just written, like, were you like eating something and you go, oh, I mean, like,
it doesn't work like that, Vicki.
It doesn't work like that.
No.
Do you wake up? Do you wake up with lyrics? Do you wake up hearing? How does it come?
Well, I've done that a couple of times, but mostly it's over a long process. I don't force it. I'm not somebody that sits down and goes, well, now I'm going to write from 1 to 4 or from 10. I just keep my antenna up so that I'll notice when a good idea arrives.
Do you always have something? Do you always have it?
Used to call it incoming. Incoming means a good idea is coming in.
Do you always have something around to write? Do you write on napkins? Do you always have something to write?
Yeah.
On?
Yeah, I write on. Well, I work on my guitars, and I also have several pads. I scribble down everything I can think of, lyrically. Stuff like that.
Do you start recording to your iPhone if you have an idea like?
Sure, I do. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I also, I do a lot of co-writing with Waddy. So, if either of us comes up with a good idea, we get together and we start banging it around. And it's like, I don't know what the process is. We just start banging away, and then something comes out of it.
It just happens, you have a line. Either you have a melodic start of something that is solid, and I play it for Danny, and he right away hears something for it, or he has a solid, but there's one side missing, so I'll supply that. There's no formula, but we're always, like you said, the antenna is always up, and they're always looking. We we're writing down titles all the time. You know, it's always, oh, that's a good title. That's a good title. You know, whether it becomes a song or not, doesn't matter. Years later, all of a sudden, what was that line? And you find that line, and there it is, still. You know.
I thought it was really fascinating to what I loved Get Back, but it was really fascinating to see the process with those guys. And
Yeah.
you know, I used to think Paul was kind of, I was a kind of a Paul hater. I heard he was like a taskmaster and all this stuff. Man, if he wouldn't have been there, that shit wouldn't have gotten done. Wow, was he just on the
All great in their own way.
Yeah, they were all great in their own way. So, Mr. Postell, you have been a busy, talk about busy, you have all kinds of things going on. So are you still, have you been producing other artists through the pandemic?
A little bit. I've
You're focusing on the immediate family?
yeah, it's become clear that producing ask Danny, it drains the crap out of you, you know. And I had this revelation. I went and played a solo concert, and I just had a really great time. And it would have had to be 12 hours in the studio with someone with music I didn't love to make the same amount of money and not have nearly as much fun. So I'll do it. But at this point, I really want to really love the music. I'm doing a fun thing on Monday with Lisa Loeb, and it's
What are you doing?
It's a song that she and Rob Morrow wrote, and it's really fun, and I'm looking forward to that. But it's one song, and it's a fun song. It's great people. We've been really slogging away at this. We've put a lot of time into this last record.
And I know you had a gig this past weekend with Lee and Steve Ferroni and Jeff Pivar and the Night Train Music Club. Was this the first time that you put this back together? Have you been doing this all along?
Yeah, I've been playing about every 2 months at McCabe's with different. We did one. Albert Lee played and Alphonso Johnson. It's just a fun thing that I did. And Russ and Leland played. Danny came down. Waddy was going to do it, but he had to go out. It's just a fun thing.
I won't do it.
It's a non-rehearsal thing that I just need to play something.
Okay, so let's talk, for those people who are tuning in who haven't seen you guys talk before. Let's talk about how you guys came to form the immediate family. So your history goes back, is it 50 years? It's 50 years? Okay, so when I know the answers to these questions, but I'm going to ask them anyway for the people that don't. So 50 years ago, it was for James Taylor. Was that the first coming together? That was the first coming together. And that was instigated by Peter Asher, is that? Okay, so so it was, the first thing was the three of you, right? Was Lee and Russ. So what was the first thing you guys worked on together?
I don't know, Sweet Baby James? No, it was after that. It was the next one, when the three of us.
I thought you did Sweet Baby James, though.
I did, yeah. But I don't think Leland was.
And I did.
No, I wasn't there till, what was it, One Man Dog or Mudslide?
Mudslide.
Slim, I think.
Mudslide.
Sweet Mudslide Slim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
But Leland toured with us early. Leland, Danny, Carole, myself, and James did a bunch of early touring right after Sweet Baby James.
Who was the bass player on Sweet Baby James?
Bobby
Wild
West played some stuff. I think
Randy Meisner played on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So Lee, you jumped in and you were touring it with them.
Yeah, I had met James, but they had already recorded that album when I met James, and so he remembered me from a time we had met, and so when it came time to play the Troubadour and start working, Kootch was in place and Russ was in place and Carole King was in place, but they really hadn't settled on a bass player, so everybody else was busy and I was available, so I ended up doing the gig, thinking it was going to be one gig, and it turned into basically the rest of my life so far.
So, and did you guys know as soon as you started playing together, this is magic, this is special, this is different, this is what I want to do?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you were an immediate family as soon as you came together.
Pretty much.
Correct.
And was it your intention to stay together as the section, or did it just evolve that way?
It evolved. It evolved into that.
And so, Waddy, how do you come into this?
I was playing with Linda. Peter Asher had approached me. He saw me. Well, actually, it's funny. I played with Carole with these guys on that Thoroughbred record.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time we all played together.
And now, do you know when it's the four of you? Okay, this is what we want. This. Do you know?
I feel that way, yes.
Yeah, we knew it was so easy to play with my brothers. Every time we try to play, there was no question about it.
Mm-hmm.
But Peter approached me to come play for James. I got hired on I don't know what album that was, but it was Nothing Like 100 Miles and Woman Gotta Have It. Those are the first songs. What was it?
Gorilla or Jay or
In the Pocket or Gorilla?
Pocket.
In the Pocket, I think. Yeah, and that's the first time I went in the
Yeah,
studio.
Clarence McD was playing piano.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then shortly after that, James and Peter asked me if I'd go on the road with these guys, and that was it. We've been together ever since then.
And did you guys ever? There was the section. There was the instrumental section, right? But was the hope always to have it evolve to what it's become? Was that, or did that just evolve? Was that ever anything you guys discussed?
It evolved. Well, if I could tell this, one day the guys invited me to come play with the section, and I was knocked out just by the idea that they would want me to go do that. And Craig Durkee was there, and I showed up, and we played. And the section was this amazing, jazzy kind of rock and roll stuff that they did. This, I don't know if you call it fusion or whatever you call it, but it was intense stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, you had to have your chops up to play it. And we played a couple of songs, and it was great fun and everything. But I said, I got to tell you guys, you've played on more hit records than anybody in this town. But for some reason, this is the kind of music you want to do. And for me, I can't really do this. I'm more into singing. I'm more into singing rock and roll songs and stuff. So if you guys ever decide that you want to do that, I'm in. And now that's what happened. That's what we all decided, and we're in. That's how it came about.
Wow. Okay, so now
It took a while.
If we're looking at the immediate family, though, at this point,
mm-hmm.
then the catalyst that really brought this together is Kootch.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about how Steve came to, because before you became the immediate family, Steve and Kootch came together, because I know you guys did my book launch 6 years ago.
Right.
So, okay, so Steve, how did you meet Kootch, and how did you then become a part of this family that's been together for so long?
Well, I was making a record, and Russ's son, Nathaniel Kunkel, ended up mixing that record. And I picked him because he mixed a record of Nash, Graham Nash. Maybe I don't know if it was Graham or David and Graham. That sounded so damn good. It was very similar to the music I was making. So I said, I want that guy. And it turned out to be Nathaniel. And he invited me to the Troubadour. So I already knew Lee. I had met Russ. And I introduced myself to Danny. And I said, hey, when you come back to LA, let's get together. So we did. We had some mutual friends. We ended up playing some acoustic guitars at a party, and it's kind of what happened with all these guys. We just sort of clicked. It was just like, oh yeah, oh wow, we play well together, don't we? And then I had this Night Train music.
You hired me for a record.
What?
Yeah. Maybe you hired me for some record you were doing.
Yeah, that same record. So I'd met Waddy. We had a mutual friend, this guy Dan Nash, and I said, "Boy, I'd love to have Waddy on a tune." And sure enough, he showed up and played amazing stuff as always. So then I met Dan, and then well, Danny will tell you what, and then Danny and I went to Japan, not with the immediate family, with a thing called Daniel Kortchmar and Friends.
Danny had a solo album.
Right. So now, and who else was with you guys when you went there?
That was who was it? Who was on drums, Steve?
It was
Jeff Young went, right?
Jeff
Yeah.
Young.
Jeff
Oh,
Young went, Bob Glaub on bass, and the drummer was
Steve Holly.
Steve Holly.
oh, I love Steve Holly. Fabulous.
So that
Okay. So, and what year was that you guys did that?
I don't know.
It was
I think
how many years
45.
ago, approximately?
A couple of years
45 or something like that.
Wasn't that?
Either 7 or 20 or
Something like that. So, okay, so you go to Japan and keep going, Steve.
Well, at the same time that was happening, I think the reason we went, there was a label interested in Danny,
Mhm.
and I don't know if I know they came to the gigs, whether they knew. You can take the story, but the Japan connection was the next step in this, and I'll let Danny take it from there.
Do you want me to continue, Victoria?
I do.
All right. So I was offered a deal to make a solo record for a Japanese label. And of course, there was practically no money, very little money. And I just assumed, I had a bunch of oldies, stuff that I'd written with Jackson, stuff I'd written with Henley, and like that, So stuff I'd written with James or for James. And it was that, and then a few original tunes as well. And I said, well, Russ and Lee, they're probably not in town. These guys are just two of the most in-demand musicians in the world. So I just assumed they weren't there. But then when I called, they were around. And they were actually prepared to work for a fraction of what these guys get. I mean, what I paid them was about 5 minutes of their time, But they came down, and I guess it was because of them. And we got together and we started playing these tunes of mine. And it was obviously great. Steve and I did a lot of pre-production before we went into the studio. And then it turned out I was waiting for Wad to be around, but Wad was out with Stevie or Joe Walsh, I can't remember. And when he came back, it was the last day that we were in the studio. The studio was Jackson's studio. So when he came in and started to play, I went, oh, well, here we go. Now it just seemed like an obvious thing to do to make it a band. We were kind of being offered, I was kind of being offered another gig in Japan. I said, well, we got to go as a band. I want to be in this band. I always wanted to be in a band, and I always wanted to be in a band with these guys. So finally, it happened, and we got to get together.
And was it a no-brainer for all of you? Like, this is possible, this is what we want to do, this is the thing?
Yeah.
We've been waiting our whole life to do this.
Yeah.
It was the perfect next step.
It's funny because when Danny and I started the pre-production, we didn't even know who the musicians were going to be.
That's right.
We were just, let's get these. He got the deal. We went in the studio and started, and then it turned into this. And when Waddy came that Sunday, for me personally, it's like, oh, well, this is the best band I've ever heard.
Steve, was it ever weird for you because these guys had so much history? Like, was it just organic that you be a part of this?
Well, both things happened at the same time. On one hand, it was totally organic, and on the other hand, it's like, oh, Waddy and Danny, those are the guys who taught me how to play guitar, and Russ and Leland are the guys who taught me what a rhythm section is supposed to sound like. But at the same time, what I do, it just made a lot of sense.
And for you guys, did it seem totally, this is right? Was
wanna
there
add
ever
that
any, was
Steve
there ever
does-
any question?
I just want to add, Vicki, that Steve does what Waddy and I don't do. In other words, Steve is a phenomenal finger picker and classically trained. He also has a high tenor voice, which neither of us had. So now he's filling in a space. He can do what Waddy and I don't do.
Yeah.
Well, so that means it makes a big bad sound when we open
He
it.
bridges that gap between my sound and Danny's sound.
Yeah.
And he always finds the right thing to be doing.
Which sometimes is leaving the room.
He knows when to split.
But it's a fascinating thing. Like to be in a band with 3 guitar players could be a total disaster. That could be just like watching the end of a bodybuilding contest with a pose on. But these guys, everybody is so unique in their own voice that there's never really a conflict with them. Everybody finds their own spot pretty easily. It's not like they really have to work at it. Each guy has such a unique voice, and it becomes more orchestral at that point. Nobody's getting in the way of the next guy. Sometimes it is, but they resolve it really quickly just by discussing things.
Yeah.
And Russ and I just sit in the back looking at each other going, what the fuck?
These guys hurry up. Yeah, really. But that was the right adjective, the orchestral. It is quite orchestral what we do. It really is.
I think it was interesting because on the Danny record there were keyboards, and I don't think any of us ever thought that it was like it was pretty obvious that we did not need a keyboard.
We weeded them out pretty quickly, yeah.
I mean, and it was Jim Cox, who's one of the greatest keyboard players in the business. And he played beautifully on it, but this really became, I have people all the time asking, well, this is like the Section. How come you don't have keyboards? And I said, no, this is not like the Section. This is an incarnation of what once was and taken to another direction. And the real essence of this stuff is a guitar-driven band. And it works beautifully like this. So we just haven't, it's been an intentional thing. Nobody's been like slagging on any keyboard players or anything like that. This is the sound that this band has created, and that's what we're committed to. And
you guys never said we should try that. It was just this just felt right.
No, and if there's any keyboard parts, somebody in the band could cover it if it was really needed. I mean, there's the ability there to do that. But so far, the writing that the guys have done is really based on the instrumentation we have.
Yes, you're a rock and roll band.
And also making it so that you can play it live and have it, and people won't be going, oh, what happened to the keyboard part on this? I mean, whatever we're cutting in the studio, we're going to be able to play live. And it'll probably even be better for the fact that we're going to have an audience in front of us and we're playing it, and that just pumps the juices that much higher.
There's time where we take a keyboard part. Like Werewolves of London, it's a keyboard part. Well, we play it on guitar, and Danny, has songs that, like Dirty Laundry. That's a keyboard. Danny plays a guitar.
I love that. Do you guys think that this pandemic has both helped and hurt this process? Like, because I get the feeling that in a way with you guys, it's kind of helped you in a way. It's given you a lot of opportunity to write and to record music. And I don't know, but is it a drag? I mean, is it a drag because you can't get out there and play more? Like, how does all that feel?
No, we took advantage of a bad situation. That's all that happened. I wouldn't give the pandemic any fucking credit.
No,
or anything.
It was a real challenge and a real pain in the ass to have to do what we did. How many videos did we make? We never even saw each other. 4 videos.
Oh yeah, at least.
We're in the same room.
That's crazy.
We're buying Amazon, struck gold with us. We had like backdrops and, green screens and fucking lights and, everything to make these videos by ourselves. And we had a wonderful editor putting it all together.
And before the editor, we did it ourselves.
And so you guys were each shooting your own. Did you have a cameraman with you, or were you doing your own stuff?
No, we shoot
our iPhone. Yeah.
iPhone on a tripod.
Yeah.
iPhone on a tripod.
It's really good, the stuff that they got. Amazing.
Yes, I've seen their videos and their.
So
Lee is always doing something wacky.
I have a question.
Yes.
This is for Denny. Denny.
Yeah.
When did it come across your desk that you decided you wanted to make a documentary about the immediate family?
What a great question, Russ.
As soon as someone said, "Do you want to make?" It was instant.
It was Lisa Roy
that brought it up to Greg Rich, like producer, and they came to me, and I said, yeah. And it seems so like, yeah, it's almost like, yeah, we should do that. It's almost like, how could we have not thought of that? And then once we met in that studio that one day and we talked about it, I kind of, was hoping that you guys would say, yeah, let's do it. But if you guys didn't have the immediate family in terms of that grouping, and you guys were just 5 guys on their own hanging out, I don't think it would work, because
No.
do you know what I mean? Yeah, you guys being together as a group now meant so much more, because listen, there's so many of these great studio players. We could go through the whole list of through the whole town. There's so many versions of this and that, but this made so much more sense because of the love and the brotherhood that you guys have, and that was the difference between the Wrecking Crew and you guys. I mean, there was a lot of differences. I don't mean that they didn't love each other, but they didn't hang out like you guys did for 50 years. My father never went.
Write. And they didn't write.
No, they didn't. They didn't write. They didn't. They weren't. They went those 3-hour sessions, 3, 3, 3, 3. Do 4 of those a day, and then move on, move on, move on. Never went on the road. You guys bonded as family, and you took it in a different direction. You took music in a different direction. I'm not belittling them or anybody. It's just the way it was.
Denny, you're really right. That makes it a better film, because it's not just about the music that we played on collectively and individually with all these great artists, but it's the personal story of like how we are together as a group. And that makes it, I can see how you would be interested in that, just as opposed to making another documentary about all the guys that played on these songs.
No, because that's hard. That's really hard to do it that way. If there's no hook, like a song for you guys, if there's no hook, it's just a bunch of, notes.
And you guys are complete originals. There isn't another. You don't exist anywhere else. Are there any other musicians that have been together as long as you guys have? Is that even?
Oh, Toto.
Yeah, the Carl boys, or all those. I mean, again,
but I don't mean bands. I mean players that have played together and for various artists that have.
But there have been, but they're not around anymore.
Yeah.
Or they're around, but they're not. They haven't come together as a band.
See, the thing that
Billy Payne. There's a lot of guys that we came up with that are still working.
No, I don't mean that. I mean together. I mean the fact that Leland and Russ have worked together, and especially you two though have really done like everything together. Does that exist in other? Has that?
I think.
Well, Stuff was a band a little bit like that, because Richard T. and Gadd and all those guys, they played on lots of other different things, and they were a band together too. But
it was short-lived. That's
it was very short-lived.
The thing I think that's such an interesting hook of this project is when you're watching the movie and you're seeing this group of guys for the most part a half a century ago. And here they are at this point, still making new music, still playing together and still touring. That's the thing. There's been lots of really cool rhythm sections, but some of them had like 3 years. Right. They disbanded and different, they had a run and then it was over. But we've been tenacious in terms of we've all had different things that we've done, but it always comes back to this. And this has been a constant for over 50 years. And I think that's the thing that's so cool.
The longevity just says it all. I love
absolutely
with these guys. Longevity is just amazing, and
the music's still fresh. That's the thing. It's like it's not like a tribute or like a nostalgia band going out and playing their 80s hits. And you go, it's kind of the same bunch of the same guys, but they haven't moved forward. They're still living off of the stuff they did 20 years ago or 25 years ago, where this new album is as good a stuff as this group of players has ever played on.
Oh, I can't wait to hear it. So
it's one of these things that it's constantly moving forward. It's not resting on past laurels.
Back to the writing. That's back to the writing.
Yeah.
When is this album dropping? The best record ever made? When will this be dropping?
The singles when? At the end of the
We don't know yet.
month?
We don't know yet. We're hoping for at the end of November, I think.
But it is What
And
is the
what
single?
do we know what the first single is? Steve, were you telling me what the first single is? Is that the first single?
First single, I'm gonna put it back to Waddy because it would never have occurred to me in a million years to do what we did, and Waddy brought. I'll let him tell the story, but it's very different for us. So Waddy, tell him why we're doing the first single.
We're doing a song by Sparks called "The Toughest Girl in Town," which is a beautifully simple, very simple, straight ahead, melodically beautiful song, great lyric. And several months ago,
The only cover you're doing.
that's the only cover, yeah. And we got on to Sparks a few months, 6 months ago, probably by now, and just were overwhelmed by the amount of music these guys have been making since the four of us have been working in Los Angeles. Those guys have been working in Los Angeles. They have like 28 albums. They live in Santa Monica. We've never met one of them.
Really?
We've never come across any one of them. They have so many songs, and I went through this list of their songs, and all of a sudden there was this one song that just reeked of needing us to do it. And it's a beautiful fucking song, and it's called "The Toughest Girl in Town." Steve sings a beautiful lead vocal to it. It's a really, really strong tune, and
I can't wait to hear this. I'm excited.
And we never thought we'd be doing a cover, but it was irresistible. I said, "You guys, you got to hear this song."
Did you all agree right away?
Yep.
That song is irresistible.
Wow, that's really cool. So Denny, how long ago did you start working on this? On the documentary?
August 2019. And I still remember that day. Well, like I said, yes, that'd be great. And they said, great. And then Danny said, well, Carole King can do an interview in 3 weeks. I'm like, oh shit. Now it's serious. And I say, oh shit, because, we have a concept.
How did you prepare? Tell us, how did you put a concept together?
He wrote a check.
What was that?
He wrote a check.
Yeah, I wrote a check. That was the problem. I don't tell anybody. I wrote the first. My wife isn't listening, I hope. But no, we did write the first check. Shh. But we basically, I just quickly, I knew what the story was. The difference between the two, these guys, 1960, my dad's 30. When they're doing that Phil Spector stuff and all that, they're kind of breaking into it. They're already kind of established at that point. Those session players, the Wrecking Crew, they're coming out of the jazz thing, but they're doing all that. Right. These guys, when they're doing Sweet Baby James and Tapestry and all those things, you guys hadn't had much recording in terms of, they weren't the session guys, the legends I always think of them as. And Peter Asher was the one that enlightened me one day in that interview. I said something to him and I went, oh my God. I keep thinking of all these names I grew up with. They're the legends, but they weren't legends on those first albums that were listening to them. Do you know what I mean? And Sweet Baby James and Tapestry and Russ, Blue, Joni Mitchell's, those are like your first few albums. And you go,
excuse me 1 second. How did Peter find each of you? Where did he find, where did he find you?
Go ahead, Danny.
Well, I met Peter a long time ago. My band, the King Bees in New York City, it's 1965, I think. Peter and Gordon were looking to do a short New England tour, East Coast tour. They were looking for a backup band like they had to do every time they came to the States. And somehow my band, the King Bees, got hired to back them up. And I mean, we were pretty good, and we learned their songs and we went out and toured with them. And I became very close friends with Peter at that point. Then, I don't know what happened after that. Peter and I, every time we would come to the States, we would hang out and we became good friends. We still are.
You're very young.
Next band I was in was Flying Machine with James Taylor. James, after the Flying Machine broke up, James moved to London. I put him in touch with Peter. Peter got him a deal at Apple. The rest is history. But then when Peter brought James to LA to record, the first thing we had was Russ. Peter found Russ playing with Jon Stewart, and then Leland came along later, and we just fell together. And You know, I'd never played with a drummer as good as Russ. I had no idea, you know. And when Russ and Lee got together, that was the best musicians I'd ever played with in my life, you know. So I was completely thrilled to death to be playing with these guys. It was love at first sight for me.
Russ, how did you meet Peter? How did he find you?
Like Danny said, I was playing with Jon Stewart, who
And
was,
he happened, yeah.
and there was another gentleman in the band named Chris Darrow, who's an amazing fiddle player and singer. And Chris knew Peter from London, from some tours that he did back there. And Chris was one of the people that Peter contacted when he came into LA to set up the sessions to record James's first Warner Brothers record. And so he called Chris and he said, I'm looking for a drummer. And Chris said, well, I'm playing with a young kid now in Jon Stewart's band. Why don't you come to a rehearsal? And Peter came to a rehearsal, and at the end of the rehearsal, much to Jon Stewart's chagrin, he hired me to go play with James on Sweet Baby James. Peter will tell the story. Jon Stewart never forgave him for that.
Yeah,
so.
I bet that's true. I bet that's true. And Lee, how did you meet Peter?
I was in a band called Wolfgang in the late 60s, and our drummer had a friend named John Fishback who owned Crystal Recording Studios. And John used to hang out at our rehearsals, and one day he brought this friend of his who had just gotten back from England, who was James. And so James hung out for a day with us, and he played us some of his songs, and we went, oh man, this cat's great. And that was the end of it. But when it came time to play the Troubadour, to start promoting James's album, they didn't have a bass player, and James told Peter that he thought I would be the perfect guy for them, and they tracked me down and called me up, and I walked in and we started playing together, and I like Kootch said, I fell in love with these guys immediately. It was music unlike anything I had ever been doing. I was like heavily into Zeppelin and Hendrix and everything, and suddenly I'm working with like not a folk artist, but a different kind of an artist. And the first downbeat I played with Russ, I knew I wanted to have his child. And Kootch is still one of my favorite musicians in the world, and it's been that way since the first note I heard him play. So it was the most organic coming together of anything I've ever been involved with. It felt like we'd known each other forever, even though it'd only been 5 minutes. And those early days were magic. Out there. I mean, none of us were really experienced at what we were doing. I mean, it was studio work and stuff like that. So we were kind of like we were thrown like right out of the frying pan into the fire. And we were fortunate that we all had the goods at that point. And this always goes back to Peter, though. Peter insisted on James's music that our names appear in the credits on the album. And that was like for the Wrecking Crew, that was not it. I mean, when people were listening to the Mamas and Papas and Frank Sinatra and the Association and all, they didn't know it was the same band playing on all those things. But for us, we got creds. And when James hit, James was like the perfect representative of this new age and new direction in music. And people were starting to sign singer-songwriters. And they looked at his album and saw our names and thought, I guess if it's good enough for James, let's call those guys. And I mean, I went from having the only experience I ever had in the studio was doing a demo with the band Wolfgang that I was in. Basically, that was it, except for when I was in '67 in a band called Group Therapy, and we weren't allowed to play on our record because the Wrecking Crew played on it.
Wow.
So, you got either.
It's just all these things that came together. And like we didn't touch, but Waddy and I met doing a Bobby Womack record, and I fell in love. The minute Waddy walked in the door, I thought I'd met like a long lost brother that we were separated at birth. And
so, did you bring Waddy into this, or Waddy? Did you know Peter? How did you?
I knew Peter through. I was very good friends with J.D. Souther, and I stopped by the studio one day when Peter was producing JD, and Peter can be very cold if he wants to be. If he doesn't know you and doesn't care to know you, he can be very, very cold. And I went by just to say hello to JD, and he went, "Oh man, you're here. You got to play." Because I always had my guitar in the car. I was doing sessions already.
Mhm.
And I saw Peter go, "Oh, Jesus Christ, no," So, but I set up, had my little volume pedal, and the first song that we did was JD's beautiful song, "Simple Man, Simple Dreams." And I knew when I heard the vocal, I knew what to do. I knew my first entrance lick was going to be what it was going to be. And when I did it, Peter just sat up and went, What was that? And then I did it again. I used to do what I call phony steel guitar. That's how I made my living in LA, with a volume pedal and my Les Paul. And Peter loved what I did right away. So he started to hire me. And it was Lou Adler that actually put us all together the first time. I had met Leland. We played for Bobby Womack for the late Keith Olsen was producing that. And then Russell and I ran into each other one day on the street. And we both had the same 57 Chevy. And he still has his. And he said, "You're Waddy?" And I went, "Yeah, you Russ?" He goes, "Yeah." He says, "I got to go." He says, "We'll be seeing a lot of each other." And the next thing I knew, I got a phone call from Lou Adler's office that he wanted me to come play on this session. And that's when I met Danny. And Danny, who I couldn't bear the thought of this guy Kootch, because all I wanted to do was play on records, and every record I saw, it had the name Kootch on it. Who is this guy? Why is he getting all this work? What is this stuff? Why is he getting this work? And as soon as we met, we fell in love with each other right away. And there was a reggae tune. We were both completely jonesed out by The Harder They Come and the reggae. So we instantly communicated. And that was the first time the four of us played together.
And you guys always knew there was no jumping on each other, or
That's right.
no competitive thing between the two. You would just
no. Danny knew what part of the neck to grab, and so did I, and we've never ever had that problem. And then, like I said, Peter then saw me playing with them, with Carole, because Lou dug what I did with the boys, and the four of us were working together, and with Clarence. And the next thing I know, I'm working on this album for Carole King. And the next thing I know, I'm on the road with my brothers. And we played UCLA, and that's where Peter saw me playing with Carole and approached me about playing with Linda. And then everything happened from there. And then from Linda went to James. And, but Peter was the conduit for all of us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
wow. So Danny, let's get back to the doc. So you started in 2019. You're getting all these great interviews with Linda and James and Jackson, and the pandemic happens. What the hell do you do? What do you do with this footage you've got? What do you do?
We have to figure, like everybody else, figure out what we're going to do. And luckily the guys were, they were cool about it. Let's go play it safe. Let's go do this. Let's get their story in the can. And that's what we did. We only had three actual interviews on Zoom in this whole doc, and one's Keith Richards, the other one is Neil Young and Stevie Nicks and Steve Jordan. Those are four, but everybody else is live. So,
and I interrupted you before. So when you were trying to build, when you were building the concept and you wanted to make it so tell us about that, how that came together.
So basically I knew the concept. I knew the differences between these two groups. These guys were able to bond with their artists versus my dad and his friends. My dad and friends went to work for 3 hours. Then 3 hours they would change constantly. Whatever was if it was a double date, they got lucky. It was longer for one, but they bonded. That's the difference. These guys bond with their artists. They took what they recorded on the road and performed it the way it was supposed to be performed.
And again, that was Peter's doing.
Yeah. And my father never went. You didn't do that in the 60s. There were a lot of reasons you didn't leave town. You didn't leave town because the road wasn't paying shit. Right. If you left town, there's 8 other guys ready to step into that contractor's or that seat of the guitar player. There's, the contractor's just going to move to the next guy. And that's a lot of money possibly you're walking away from. So there was a difference in attitude. And once these guys took their music became different. The music these guys are producing seems, I don't want to, and again, I sound like a degrading or pissing on the other music, but they took their time with this because they had the chance to take their time to develop and put themselves into it and for more creativity. That's how I look at it. Mm-hmm. So that's how they become more closer as a group of musicians. You know, I'm sure there'll be others that say you're full of shit, but that's how I took it. And once we ran with that, and then every interview was like, oh my God, it was the easiest interview to get. Once someone got a hold of whatever, Carole or Linda or James or whatever, absolutely, they said. They love these artists, or the artists love these guys like no one. I mean, I've never seen that before, you know, and it was so easy. And they could have.
I can't wait to see this film. Okay, so it's finished.
It's finished.
It's being sent to you've all seen it.
Yeah.
I assume that you all think the world of it.
Blown away.
Well,
Very, very.
Like, is it as good as you could possibly imagine it could be?
Yeah.
Is it everything you'd want it to be?
Better.
Yeah.
And more.
It's a hard thing for them. I was like the other film. Long as they're happy, long as the musicians are happy, I feel good about it. And watching these guys, it is a hard thing, like Waddy said, to watch themselves on the screen. I always remember what you said, Waddy. The two things that you said, or one thing you said was, he was in shock, and I could see you teary-eyed. He goes, I've never, you guys have all done hundreds of video or documentaries over the years, but it's always about someone else, but not to talk about themselves or someone else talking about them. So it's a weird concept. And for them to allow me to take that on, that thank God they allowed me, and thank God they were as kind as they were to give me, their message and their love. Because they don't. The other thing is they don't hold back. None of you hold back. Well, they don't. I promise you, none of them hold back.
So,
but there's no bullshit. And they don't need to bullshit, even if they had, because they're not trying to impress anybody. And
they are who they are. They're all real.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
And then Jackson's great line was, when Jackson saw it, I always remember, he was like stunned. He goes, I've known these guys for over 50 years, and I didn't know that about certain things. Yeah. And that was really cool to see that.
Were you guys surprised by any of the interviews and the things that they said about you? Were there any surprises for you?
Not really.
Sure. Well, I don't know. I was surprised at a few things.
We agreed to do it right away. They were going to say nice things about us, of course. Or otherwise, they said, no, I don't want to do it. But
it
they
was
all
really
did.
touching.
Were there any new things that popped up, maybe, that you didn't know about? Someone else talked about someone else?
There were surprises all through it, really. I think
I think so too. Yeah.
There were surprises, things that that I thought I knew the way they were, and then I hear it from Russell's point of view or from Danny's point of view, and it was like, oh wow, I never even conceived of it that way. Postell, he's looking at us from a whole different point of view, so it's wild to hear his take on it. It's shockingly pretty fucking good, Denny.
James Taylor says something in his interview, and I'm going to paraphrase, but it kind of goes like, he says, and James speaking in his very stoic way, he says, I cannot stress enough how important the contribution that these musicians made to my music. And then he says it again. He goes, I cannot stress that enough. So.
And it was, I got goosebumps.
I do too. I'm like,
you say that about what James said, because I was there, and I still get goosebumps every time they say something like that. Yeah. Because those are the interviews I could easily get flustered by. These are the legends. You guys are legends, but these are the next legends. I've grew up with us, and it was the kindest interviews. Linda, I mean, the kindness.
How is Linda?
She was fabulous. It was hard. the fact that she did that, when her doc just came out.
Her doc is
And
fantastic. Yeah.
yeah, fabulous. And it was so sweet to see her. And I think the greatest thing about Linda was when she laughed. Oh my God, she couldn't stop herself from laughing when she'd be telling a story about with Waddy or Danny or so. It's just the funniest things. And she just like a little devilish girl, she was like a devil. You could tell she had such a twinkle in her eye, and she could be a bad girl.
Linda Ronstadt was a real road dog girl.
What she says there, she goes album tour.
Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah.
On the road her whole life, that girl.
I know. And but the love that you guys, and all of them, and even Don Henley, we talked about the relationship between Don and Danny, and coming from two different perspectives. You guys both had your memories, and you both respect each other, but you also butted heads. And I know we both, they all talk about it.
That
But
got
in
into the doc.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. But the respect for each other is so high, you kind of push that aside.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? You joke about it's like you look at pain in the past, you kind of forget a lot of pain.
Oh,
You know,
everybody
you-
romanticizes the past. That's
Yeah, but I think, would you want to do a tour with so and so anymore? Hell no. But
also,
the-
you come away from a session having done what you think is a good job. You did what was needed, and you might have even gone a little beyond it. But to hear these amazing artists talk about what we did for them is really mind blowing. It
wow.
really puts it in a
I
whole.
can't wait to see this. Okay, so it was post-production crazy hard in the pandemic. I mean, that must have made it so much.
that wasn't so much. Post-production is not that hard in a
Okay.
sense, other than not being able to work with an editor in the same room for a while. But it took us a while. We had 3 different editors. Ryan Nunnerly started it, then Chris came on, and then Justin Williams had finished it. It was in between the producers, Greg and Jack and Jonathan. I mean, we all came together and figured it out. There's still those tweaks you want to make, but we'll see. I'm sure we'll see how it goes. I think we're being accepted into these festivals knows we're on the right track. And a few people
so
that
this
have
is
seen it.
so you're on the festival. You're doing the festival thing now.
Yes.
And
Go to
so
Woodstock first, which is fabulous. Woodstock is on September 30th. Then I go to Wichita, which is Tallgrass Film Festival, and I do that on Saturday. And these guys go to Nashville, and then I meet up with them on Sunday to play in Nashville on the 1st. And
So-
there's the couple. Go ahead.
is there a screen? Is there going to be a Q&A and a screening? and
Oh,
everything?
absolutely. Yeah, there's Q&As after every one of them. So, and the first one is Leland and Steve will be there in Woodstock. I'm by myself on Saturday. Then Danny and Lee and Steve join us in Nashville. Poor Waddy and Russ, they'll have to catch up with us.
And so how challenging is it to get a distributor for, a documentary notoriously hard.
I mean, we don't want to talk about the last one. How many years I started from what, guys? 19 years from day one of shooting to finish. So we don't have that much time. I don't have that much time on the source.
But there's all these streaming.
Yeah, it's not. It'll happen. I'm not worried about it because Wrecking Crew really showed naysayers. Fuck you. We're gonna do it, and we did it, and that did very well. And everybody's waiting for this one. So I know it will be fine. I'm not worried about it. You know what the biggest thing is? Everybody needs to tell everybody, and they need to go to the website, see the sizzle. Let's call it a sizzle. Because I don't want to call it. It's a sizzle.
There is a sizzle on there?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's give everybody the information,
Okay.
so how they can help, how they can find
If you go
everything.
go to the website, the film website, which is immediatefamilyfilm.com. You'll
Okay.
see the sizzle. I say sizzle. It's not trailer, but it is. And then once you do that, then sign up, because once we have everybody signed up, we'll just give you an outtake. We had a great outtake the other day of Russ. I don't know if, did you get to see it, Russ? The
No,
outtake. Oh, you didn't get to see it? All right, I'll send it to you.
It's great.
It's really fun. It's Russ talking about opening up at Wembley Stadium, and he goes, "It's one of those oh my moments." I was really nervous because me and Joe Lala had to go out and start 90,000 people in Wembley Stadium doing the 16 bars by ourselves. So this is where the fun begins, because I got each one of these guys. There's so much stuff they gave me, could never go in that documentary. So I'm able to pull my favorite lines from Steve and from, Waddy and and we're just gonna
How
pepper us.
fun.
If you sign up, you'll get those.
How fun. And will you also do like a director's cut? Will you have a lot of this stuff?
No, I mean,
No.
No one wants to see that 5-hour cut. So just give it a different way.
Well, I am so excited to hear the new album. I am, Denny. I'm hoping you're gonna feed me a little stuff to watch on my own. Please,
I'm sorry I didn't feed you earlier.
I just cannot wait to see this. Huh?
What's that? What?
Personal there. A little personal there. Take it easy, pal. Family show.
This is
family time.
This is not a fucking family show, please.
No,
fuck immediate family show. What?
I just adore each one of you so much, and it's so thrilling to see this happen for all of you. And my gut says that this is going to be something that is going to be beyond your wildest dreams, all of you. I see massive. I can't wait till the world really opens up so that you guys are just doing what you should be doing and doing it together all the time. Thank you so
thank you, Vicki.
so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vicki.
So sweet.
I so appreciate all of you, and I'm so grateful that you spent this time with me. I can't wait to see Denny. You have to show me the film, please. You have to show me the film.
All right, don't tell anybody. I'm going to show it to you.
I won't tell a soul, but I just have to see it.
It's secret.
I love you all, and Steve, you got to send me some tracks. I got to hear some tracks.
No, he doesn't. But you have to let him know. But you have to let us know what you think of the movie. But Steve ain't sending you nothing.
Yeah.
I promise I will. I promise I will. Thank you all so much for doing this. I adore
Thanks,
you.
Vicki.
Thanks so much.
You all.
Love you, Danny.
Bye, guys.
Danny.